I was an actor and a writer and a director. Now, there's a lot of credibility in that type of work, and I still enjoy it. But to figure out something that I can do alone and that I could make something you can hold. We have this patron at the theater that I help run. She used to come in all the time and she'd be wearing these garments, these beautiful, very, very detailed garments. She invited me and my wife and child over for dinner, and I went into her loom room. She said, sit down, throw the shuttle. These are boat shuttles. They're self-feeding. You saw me, I was winding earlier. 3 years later, 2.5 years later, have my own loom, and when you give somebody something that you spent 40 hours of your life on, it's much better than, for me, than any letter I can write or anything I can do. It's just... So what I'm working on here is a piece of textile to be woven into jackets. And it'd be my first weaving project that is going to be a wearable. The feel and the lightness of bamboo mixed with Montana alpaca is sort of like some elvish type shit. There's plain weave, which is just under, over, under, over, under, over, and then there's twills, and twills are a dance. So I hit 2, 3, 3, 4, 1, 4, 1, 2, 2, 3, 2, 4, you know, and so you start to do a dance. That's where old weaving songs come in. I think people to remember the pattern that they're on. There's, in some of the weaving books and some of the history of textiles, there's only, through these songs, is the only way you know how to weave a certain pattern. And if you don't get taught the song, you don't know the pattern. World history through textiles was a much cleaner way to learn world history than I was taught in schools with wars and conquering and political boundaries. Prior to textiles, people were wearing skins. Pretty much they kill an animal and fashion some type of garment out of the skin. Almost simultaneously globally, with cultures who had no contact, the loom and variants of the loom came into existence in and around the same time. And like I said, so learning world history through weaving has been a really, really nice change. Checking for mistakes. See, I made a mistake when I come over and look. That I skipped a pedal, and there's absolutely no mistakes yet. Always leave one mistake in so that the evil spirits have a way to come out of the cloth. I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty much a perfectionist, so I don't like to leave any mistakes. What you do in that situation says a lot about your character. Will you go back and unweave, or will you just plow through the mistake? Unweaving is this section right here is going to take me 10 minutes. I am going to go back tonight because I have yet to make a mistake, and if you do a threading error, you have to undo all of it and go back. So I've made a few threading errors in my life, and that's a fucking nightmare. When you're fixing a mistake in weaving, you have to just sort of unweave, reverse exactly what you did. So reverse the petals, reverse each throw. My teacher originated a system to where an astrological birth chart is translated thread by thread. In a birth chart, each one of those degrees of that circle has a planet, a constellation. It's a cosmic fingerprint, essentially. Truly a one-off cloth. That's what she was weaving all the time, and so that's what I learned how to do. And I did my own, I've done my wife's, I've done 4 or 5 babies of friends that were born. You wouldn't believe estate sales. There are so many looms right now that aren't being used and that are just sitting, gathering dust. I only wanted 4 shafts. The more shafts you get, the more complicated it is. Join the Weavers Guild, and I went to a few events, and being that I was a younger male, I was sort of an anomaly. People offered me everything from looms to equipment to teaching me their craft. People are really thirsty to teach people the craft of weaving. But your yarn stash to get started gets expensive, and that's where that little addiction comes in. You're always looking at textiles and yarns, and I can do a project with that. I got so much stuff here. In order to create something out of nothing, out of these individual threads, they must be lined out in the warp. The warp is what goes vertically, and the weft is what you pass through the shed here. The shed is the opening between the 2 warp threads, and so you pass this through. So this is the weft, and that is the warp. The warp and the woof, the warp and the weft. There's basically two types of cloth. You have weft facing or warp facing, or 50-50. What I have right here is essentially a 50-50, which means you can essentially see as much of the weft as you can of the warp. Rugs, for example, especially Navajo rugs, those are all weft facing. The weft is packed down so tightly on the warp that you can't see the warp strings. These Bolivian pieces here are all done on much smaller backstrap or ankle looms. Very detailed, hyper detailed. If you look on my walls, there's many different places represented. We have Russian weaving right here. We have American. We have Indonesian. They tie all these strings together and then they dye them very much like a tie-dye type situation. And then they weave them all dyed, and that's the patterns that come out. This one right here is a Colombian/Ecuadorian. It's an ayahuasqueros cloth. The orange right there is on the back side of that is Irish and Scottish wool, and it's an Irish blanket. And then that blue one right there is Japanese. The Japanese are amazing at indigo and the way that it's called double ikat that they have there, and that's the way they dye it for the warp and the weft. It's like Russian meets Indonesian. And then we have Spanish wool over here to the right. That's from in Spain. And then the next one over is India. And very similar to the Polynesian sort of ikat. There's so many of life's metaphors are all right here. It's just a really great learning tool, not only as a technical and practical skill, but as a, dare I say the word, mindfulness practice. The mood I'm in, I could see it in the weaving, I could see if I'm rushing, I could see if I was frustrated. You get in tune with these certain things, and if you start paying attention to that, there is some scalability into your life. Checking the tension. Maybe go one more. If you ever come back, I can tell you to come back when I cut it off the loom. That's weaving porn. Just